sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti. Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And I wanted to put this video together. It's going to be a short one, but it really will help show the things that I look for in every piece of evidence that is released to tell me if I'm on the right track or not. I did a video yesterday, and if you watch that one, then you will have a firm understanding of the high-level view of what took place in this case, why it happened, and the truth is going to stem from there. However, there's two different things that we're dealing with in this case, in my humble opinion. One is the actual crime itself and who all is involved. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt what caused it. The major players that put it in place, and at least one of the assailants that is guilty of the crime on King Road. Now, there's other things that are going to stem from there, though, and that's when you dig into the fine details. And other things that I'm fairly certain of as you go through the investigation into this case is something that I've been right about since, I guess, my first video that I ever put out. I said that this is a case that was investigated through confidential informants. And I've probably said that, I guess, in every video I've ever made. This is a case of confidential informants. And one of the main things that I wanted to get across in this case and getting the truth out was the fact that the use of confidential informants is not good practice in this country, and it leads to situations like this. And when you start looking at all the evidence that's coming out now, I don't know how more right I could have been. I mean, we literally have police reports discussing the use of confidential informants by the FBI, specifically Ryan O'Neal. And then I've researched Ryan O'Neal, special agent, and what his specialty is. It's confidential informant handler. He's been involved in many cases across the country. And then we dig into the DoorDash driver. I mean, they're literally represented on radio calls by law enforcement as being confidential informants. More video has come out of even more egregious use of confidential informants. I know Atlanta did a video, put out a body cam of the DoorDash driver at the hospital with a Justin guy. And these are beat cops talking about a guy getting a DWI, and they didn't charge him with it so that he could go and purchase Molly McMetherton type stuff with, with their overview. I mean, they're using beat cops now just to reduce charges on offenses that have nothing to do with narcotics to set them up to go and be snitches in the narcotics world. I mean, it's everywhere around this case. So when I talk about the people that I suspected for years now, and I've showed you where their charges were reduced and it wasn't a typical thing. And then we find out through police reports that, for instance, Farley was an FBI informant. We find out through police reports that there's confidential informants all over this freaking case. Well, then it only verifies my suspicions all along that this was a case that was actually a little bit less investigated by police and a little bit more involving confidential informants. And I continue to see things that come out that continue to back that up. The problem in this case is we've got, in my opinion, two different things that we're having to look for. I mean, two different conspiracies. One is the crime itself and the investigation. The other is what happened after the crime. And I think that is a crime in itself as well, because we know, I mean, we're 99.9% sure that after the crime, a cover-up took place, and that cover-up involved law enforcement, people that were around this case, and the university. And there is no doubt about that. In my humble opinion, I mean, they've got some things that they're trying to hide as it relates to that, as well as trying to hide the entire case. So There is no doubt in my mind that law enforcement, the university was contacted before noon and events took place before noon. And there continues to be things that come out that back up everything that I'm speaking of right now. And we're going to show just a few examples of that in this video. One is going to be a interview that was done with Jack D. Now, most people look at the Jack D interview and they're looking for reasons why Jack D was guilty of this thing. Well, not me, but I did listen to the words he said, and I think he may have even said something that was very profound as far as evidence of actual surveilling in this case, unlike the BS that they try to describe to Brian Kohberger when he's going to Target, right? Kohberger goes to Target, so we assume he's surveilling the residents. When there was actual surveillance and apparently evidence of actual surveillance, because Jack D not only witnessed it, he took a picture of it. So this is something that should exist in some realm of the case files in this case. And I'll show you why it could be impactful, because when I see little things like that and I hear little things like that, I associate it with other things that I've looked at. Allow me to elaborate in this one. So in the video I did yesterday, I told you to be aware of specific dates in this case when you're looking through the police record. And one of those dates is November 23rd. And right here we've got this witness that I originally looked at, and I thought it was somebody that was running the House of Charity actually talking about Farley. But now I realize this is actually Farley who is the witness. And the date coincides when he would be questioned, because on November 23rd, 2022 is when they got with Farley up in Spokane. And what was he talking about? So that by interviewing him, they were asking him about, I believe, Mowich in this particular interview. And he was talking about Mowich as a transient subject who arrived at the facility on October 31st, 2022, and stayed until November 3rd, 2022. But the thing that's profound is on the evening of November 3rd, 2022, I believe this says Mowich collected his personal items and left the facility in a minivan. Farley didn't know who the vehicle belonged to.
Okay. So I know you said you were sleeping, obviously, most of the night, but at any point did anybody mention hearing, seeing anything out of the ordinary?
No, not that I heard.
Nothing, huh? Okay. Did you hear or see anything out of the ordinary?
No, not until the morning.
Yeah, not until you saw the cop cars and stuff?
Okay.
Have you noticed anybody around, like in your group of friends or even just in the neighborhood, that you're like, that guy's kind of, or gal is kind of off looking? Anybody stick out like that to you in the last few months since school started?
One day there was this like old minivan that was just like kind of backing up in like up our street and back down. And it just looked weird. I took a picture of it on my phone.
Okay.
Just, but never thought of anything of it, and that was probably a month or two ago.
So it was just backing down the street?
I mean, I live on like that dead end, so he like pulled up and then like backed down and then was just sitting there forever. And I might just be stereotyping, but
No, you're good. It's the kind of stuff we need to know for sure. What color was it? Do you remember?
I think it was like a dark gold.
Dark gold.
But it was like peeling paint and stuff.
So when Jack describes an old gold minivan backing down his street and then sitting there forever to the point to where he noticed it was odd enough that he took a picture of it. And this is Jack D's place right here. So this minivan would be sitting somewhere in this area, according to his statement, which would give a direct view right through here of the King Road residence, which would, in my opinion, be a clear sign of actual stalking or surveilling a property that they're planning to do a hit on. And then when I see another police report that it looks to me like is Farley possibly talking about Mowich and stating that he was picked up in a minivan, well, that's too much of a coincidence for me, but look at the view they would have. So from this released body cam, we could see that if that van, there's Jack D's house right there. If the van had backed up here and was sitting here and look at the view they would have right through the area right there at the King Road residence. That's real surveillance. That's a real lead. So now I've got to go back through all the police reports and see if they ever followed up on anybody in this case that was driving a old gold minivan, because that could end up being key. And we know Jack D got a picture of it. So there's little nuggets, I think, that you can find all throughout this case if you have your eyes and ears open when you hear them and you're looking for the right information. If you're just watching the Jack D interview and you're looking for why he's guilty, then you'd never hear that. But then on the other end of the scale, we've got conspiracy number 2, which I believe is what happened after the atrocity. And I firmly believe it happened with Hunter's brother or sister. Hunter's brother or sister. Ethan's brother or sister, or brother and sister, and Hunter and Emily and everybody that was involved, the roommates with the 911 call BS. And when you listen to his statements in the interview where he's laughing uncontrollably because he probably thinks it's funny because he knows he's been prepped by law enforcement on what to say. And you know that things aren't true when you listen to statements and they change completely over time. And we've pointed out that in the past, and we'll point it out again. Here we go.
When Dylan had called, I didn't think it was urgent. So I started walking to Xana's house, and when we got there, Dylan and Bethany had exited the house.
Seeing her friends sitting in the driveway, Emily knew right away something was wrong.
They frightened, just kind of like just hands on their mouth, like, I don't know what's going on type thing.
Hunter immediately went to investigate.
When I was going up the stairs, Hunter Johnson was already in the house. We were just a bit behind.
As soon as I stepped in the house, I was like, oh, something is so not right. Like, you could feel it almost. I set foot in the house, and immediately Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911. I set foot in the house, and immediately Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
When Dylan had called, I didn't think it was urgent. So I started walking to Xana's house.
Right around noon, maybe just before then, and called my girlfriend that she thought something was not right in her house, and she heard and saw a man in their house last night, and she wanted us to come over to like make sure everything was okay, because they just locked themselves in their I think is what they said. And so I was the first one to get over there. I left pretty quickly because I just wanted to make sure, and I got over there and I walked up the stairs, and I immediately went into Xana's room, which was the only room I went into. I went up the stairs, saw them. Were pretty uncontrollably crying and didn't know what was going on. Sure. And I told them to get out of the house and call the cops. And I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the drawer because I didn't know if someone was still in the house or not. And I grabbed the knife. It's probably still on the little table they have in the living room area.
Downstairs?
Like in the middle, like where the kitchen level, that level.
There's like a little area there.
Yeah, there's an area, and I put the knife there after, but I grabbed the knife and I went into the room and I checked like the closet and everything to make sure there was no one in there, and it didn't seem like anyone was in there. And then
Now I believe that Hunter's laughing right there because he knows what he's saying is not consistent with what happened, but he knows he's following what law enforcement has told him to say about the situation. And we know it's not consistent with other statements that they've made because we have their other statements and we can clearly hear what he just said.
So I started walking to Xana's house, and when we got there, Dylan and Bethany had exited the house.
Seeing her friends sitting in the driveway, Emily knew right away something was wrong.
They frightened, just kind of like just hands on their mouth, like, I don't know what's going on type thing.
Hunter immediately went to investigate.
We go to the judge's order on the text and the 911 call at approximately 11:50 a.m. Dylan called her friend Emily and asked her to come over and check the house because she was scared. Emily and her boyfriend Hunter came over. And by the way, according to the grand jury transcript that the judge cited, Josie, Emily, and Hunter met Dylan and Bethany at the bottom floor of the house. Grand jury transcript. Grand jury testimony. Together, Dylan, Bethany, and Hunter started to walk up the stairs to the second floor. When they reached the second floor, Hunter went to the kitchen to grab a kitchen knife. When he came back out, Dylan saw Xana again for a split second. And I just started bawling because I thought she had just I don't even know. I thought maybe she was still drunk and all asleep on the floor. Yeah, I bet. But, BF also saw Xana lying on the floor. This is all in the grand jury testimony right here. So we just heard them say Hunter testified that as soon as he got there, he ran in the house to check it out. So what they're stating is this right here happened as soon as they got there. Dylan, Bethany, and Hunter started to walk upstairs to the second floor, and all this took place. Now, Hunter seen them, Dylan seen her, and Bethany seen her lying on the floor. This is before the 911 call, y'all. Hunter told BF told Dylan and Bethany to get out. That is according to the grand jury testimony from Emily. So this is her testimony. Hunter told Dylan and Bethany to get out, who had started up the stairs. Emily, who had started up the stairs, also turned around after Hunter instructed her not to come any further. They both went outside. Shortly afterwards, Hunter exited the house and told them to call 911.
Okay.
Shoot, I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Sorry, this is just a lot. What's his name? That's his name. They all came into the house. They were coming up the stairs, and I told them to get out. They do not want to come in. They need to get out. And that's when you guys roughly showed up around the scene, was when I told them to get out.
Get out. Okay.
So he said they showed up roughly on the scene about the time he was telling them to get out. But all the other statements up to this point has been when he told them to get out, he was telling them to dial 911. How do they show up? As he's telling them to call 911. Inconsistent statements tell the story.
Your girlfriend?
Yep.
Right? So she gets a call from around noonish.
Yep.
Basically says that there was somebody in the house. She tells you, so you head over to the place.
Yeah, it was on speakerphone, so me all heard it, and we all kind of got up and we're gonna go check on them. When I walked into the house and entered the code to get into the house, they were in the room, which is on the very bottom floor, right next to the main
to the front, right?
Yeah. And they heard me come in, and they were like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" And I was like, "It's just what's going on."
Okay.
And that's when I walked upstairs, and they're like, we don't know what's going on." And I checked it out. And
how did you get the code to the door?
We just know it because we're all friends.
Okay.
When I walked into the house and entered the code to get into the house, they were in the room, which is on the very bottom floor, right next to the main
to the front, right? Yeah.
And when we got there, Dylan and Bethany had exited the house.
Seeing her friends sitting in the driveway, Emily knew right away something was wrong.
They frightened, just kind of just hands on their mouth, I don't know what's going on type thing.
Hunter immediately went to investigate.
When I walked into the house and entered the code to get into the house, they were in the room, which is on the very bottom floor, right next to the main
to the front, right? Yeah.
So naturally, getting to the truth of the matter is always going to be hindered by so many different lies in the case. Now, you can identify lies fairly easily because lies tend to change over time, right? When they say one thing in one scenario and they say something else in another scenario and it doesn't add up, well, then you know that a lie is taking place, because the truth is much easier to remember than all the lies. But then you got to ask yourself, why are they lying? Well, in my humble opinion, even bad cops are really good at telling when somebody is telling the truth or not. In a situation like this, where they're obviously being inconsistent every time they open their mouth, and it's not that suspicious to law enforcement, tells me that law enforcement is guiding them in their lies. And then you got to ask why. And I firmly believe it's because of what happened after the atrocity up until the point of the 911 call. And I firmly believe that law enforcement, the university, and all kinds of other folks were involved in hiding something that they don't want everybody to know about after the atrocity. What that is, I mean, we can only speculate at this point, but it's very evident in the inconsistent statements. And I think the laughing of Hunter in that interview is very indicative of the fact that he knows he's lying, and he knows that he can laugh right in front of Mowery because he's trying to back up statements that they've already told him to make. And you can see by the way the interview was conducted by Mowery that he would restate the facts after Hunter said the facts, so that Hunter didn't get confused on the facts that he wanted him to restate, in my humble opinion. But once again, there's just so much going on in this thing, and you have to pick literal needles of fly shit out of all the black pepper in this thing to try to get anywhere near the truth. But every day and every piece of new information that comes out, I believe takes us one step closer to it. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. And until next time, Pavarotti is out.
until I